Good morning. Happy Friday, Year 6. I am hoping you are looking forward to the weekend. But first of all, we have an English lesson to get out of the way and enjoy, of course. So today we're going to start with our grammar slammer. 2 questions. Let's have a look at the first one. Tick the option that correctly completes the sentence below. Something an official Olympic sport at the Winter Olympics in Japan. So, which beginning is right? This is testing our knowledge of subordinate clauses. Today, I'm not going to read them out because they're all the same. The question is, where does the comma go? Because that is the thing that changes in every sentence. Is it 1, 2, 3, or 4? Have a look. The other question is, which sentence is punctuated correctly? Joe went upstairs, turned on his computer, took out his homework and started. Again, this is testing your knowledge of where commas go. Where does the comma go? Is it 1, 2, 3, or 4? I want you to have a look and see if you can answer that now. Okay, hopefully you have had a go. So let's have a look at this one first. In 1998, snowboarding became, comma, no, that's not right. In 1998, snowboarding became an official, no, that's not right. In 1998, snowboarding became, no, that's not right either. In 1998, snowboarding became, that is our right answer. That's the right answer. Okay, which sentence is punctuated correctly? So, Joe went upstairs, turned on his computer, took out his homework. Now, because there's no comma there, it runs into 1. So we are looking for Joe went upstairs, turned on, no, that's running into 1. Joe went upstairs, no, that's not right. Joe went upstairs, turned on his computer, comma, took out his homework and started. This is the right one. Okay. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Okay, word of the day. Today's word of the day is quarrel. It means to have an argument with someone. Quarrel. It's quite an old-fashioned word again, but I think it's a good one. And if you are a Scrabble player, then it's a good cue word to put on your board. Okay, so quarrel, to have an argument. Despite their heated exchange, Bob and Linda agreed it was a pointless quarrel. Okay, it's to have an argument. If you quarrel with someone, generally it doesn't mean you're having a massive argument. It's just a quarrel. So maybe you quarrel with your brother or sister or your cat or dog. I don't know. Can you please write me a sentence using today's word of the day? You will need to pause the video and write me a sentence, please. Okay. We are looking this Friday at punctuating speech accurately. It's something we have touched on before in our English lessons, but it's definitely worth going over again because it's something that is quite complex and complicated, and it's something that lots of you are still getting to grips with, which is fine. It's fine to be learning it, but I want us to do it again so we get better at it. Because in our character descriptions, we are going to be using speech to give us more information about our character. Remember, we aren't just telling people what they look like. That is good, that is fine. If you're year 3 and 4, that's fine. But in year 6, we need to be using different ways of describing a character, using looks, which we're all fairly confident with, but using how they speak and the actions they make. So we're going to look today at speech. Right, we are going to read together chapter 8. If you are in school, shout out to the school posse. You've got books, I understand, so you could read along with me, or you can just listen. If you're at home, you can do the same. You can read along on the slides, or you can just listen. But make sure you are taking it all in. Okay, so did you knock on us? Snarled Bill Sykes, pushing his scarred head close to Oliver's. Did you go gabbing to your high and mighty friends about us? No, sir, truly, gasped Oliver, gibbering with terror. Because if you did, I'll fix it so you'll never speak to another word to nobody, never. Understand? Oliver nodded dumbly. Then, as Sykes wrenched on his arm, broke into a trot to keep up. His kidnappers hustled him away to the darker side of London town. They were given a noisy welcome on his return to Fagin's den of thieves. The boys crowded round Oliver, laughing and pointing. Look at Oliver! Oh, look at them shoes! Oh, fancy boots! Ain't he the little toff? Shame to spoil that nice new suit, ain't it, Mr. Fagin? Fagin's leering face swept close to Oliver's face. Quite right, my dears. Better change back into your working clothes, Oliver. As soon as Oliver saw his old suit hanging from a nail, he realised how they'd tracked him down. Mrs. Bedwin, in presenting him with his new suit, had given the old one to the rag and bone man at the door. The suit, like some small, greasy, stolen boy, had passed from one pair of dishonest hands into another and another, until at last came to Fagin, who carefully unravelled their secrets. The artful dodger dipped deep into Oliver's pocket and fetched out the £5 note. Fagin snatched it, saying, It's mine, the book you can keep. All right, Bill? Hand it over, you old rogue, said Sykes, drawing a knife. We earned it, Nancy and I. You sell the books if you can find someone to buy 'em. Oh, no, please, give them back, cried Oliver in desperation. You must send them back to Mr. Brownlow. Keep me, but send the money and the books, or he'll think I've robbed him. The two men's eyes fell on him. In the heat of the quarrel, he had almost slipped their mind. So he will, my dear, so he will, mused Fagin, and a hideous grin slowly split his face. How very well things are turning out. In spite of her part in recapturing Oliver, Nancy seemed the only one with any pity for his plight. Lord, forgive me. What have I done? She whispered. She was very pale, and her eyes were very bright. I've robbed you, Fagin. I've robbed for you, Fagin, since I was younger than Oliver here. I've done whatever I had to do to survive. I'm nobody and nothing, and there's no help for me. But him, he had a chance. Oliver had a chance to lead a decent life. Now what's in store for him except to cheat and steal and blacken his soul working for you, you old devil? And he'll end up rotting in prison or swinging from a rope while you squirrel up the loot. She was raging now, tearing at her hair and clothes. The Brotherhood of Boys gaped at her, unnerved, afraid. Do something, Bill, hissed the old man. Her noise will fetch the law. Oh, I can shut her up soon enough, said Sykes uneasily. Sometimes she gets like this, but it don't last. That's the thing with women. Nothing lasts long with them. He fixed Nancy with a slap that knocked her down. The watching boys flinched. For a moment, their cheery, raucous little world was shown in its true light. Fear and violence. Dog eat dog. Oliver looked to the door, but the dog Bullseye growled and wriggled closer, fixing its bloodshot eyes on Oliver's throat. Long after dark, the two friends sat still, listening to the tick of the clock, hoping to hear Oliver's feet on the front steps. Long after all hope had passed, they went on waiting. Even Mr. Grimwig, who had won the bet, wished he had not. Perhaps he got lost or was set upon and robbed, said Mr. Brownlow. Perhaps he did, said Mr. Grimwig. You should offer a reward for any information. Mr. Brownlow brightened a little. I shall do that. I shall put a notice in the newspaper tomorrow morning. Then they sat on in the darkness, each lost in their own thoughts, each returning time and time again to the thought of Oliver Twist. Mr. Bumble the Beagle glanced idly through the newspaper as he sat waiting for a train. He was on his way to Birmingham on parochial business. His eyes fell on an advertisement in large black type. 5-guinea reward to any person having information concerning one Oliver Twist, or how he may be found. The familiar name twisted itself into Mr. Bumble's heart like a corkscrew. At once, Mr. Bumble altered his travel plans and caught the next train to London. By evening, he was in Pentonville. Oh, I knew there'd be news of him. I knew it, declared Mrs. Bedwin, hurrying him into the house. Bless his heart, I said so all along. Mr. Bumble was ushered into the parlour, where Mr. Brownlow and Mr. Grimwig showered him with questions. Mr. Bumble's chest swelled with self-importance. He laid his tricorn hat on the chair and perched very upright on the edge of his chair. I know the boy's history from the day of his birth until he deserted his duties and ran off to London, and every minute was filled with villainy and deceit, sir. Then settling himself like a chicken on her eggs, the beagle began to tell the story he was sure Mr. Brownlow wanted to hear. It was a story of a thieving, lazy, spiteful boy, born of vicious common parents, a boy who would rather brawl and cheat than do an honest day's work. It was the story of a sly boy who used his innocent good looks to worm his way into kindly hearts, only to trick and deceive them. In short, there was never such an ungrateful, dishonest, peevish, unpleasant child in the history of the world, declared Mr. Bumble, folding his hands around his staff of office and smiling grimly. For a long time, Mr. Brownlow did not speak or stir. Then he counted out 5 golden guineas into the beadle's hand. I'm grateful to you, sir. The reward is yours, though I would have gladly paid you 3 times as much to hear you speak well of the boy. Oh, said Mr. Bumble, wish I could known this before. Sadly, it was too late to unsay the lies he had just told. Okay. We are today going to focus on looking at the word said, okay, and how to use speech and how to do that. So what I want you to do in the next couple of, let's say 60 seconds or so, is I want you to write down as many synonyms for the word said as you can think of. How many synonyms can you come up with? So you need to pause the video. You need to set yourself some sort of timer, not very long, and you need to write down as many words for said as you can think of. Are you ready? Are you steady? Go. Okay. Hopefully you have got a lot. If you have got, say, more than 10, great job, okay? If you've got more than 5, okay. Less than 5, rubbish. Go back and try and do more, okay? These are the words that I can think of. There are lots of them. And it's much more exciting to use a word like one of these than using a word like said, because said can get used too often. That's not to say that you shouldn't use it, because sometimes you don't want to go into too much detail. You just need something short and sweet and to the point, okay? But sometimes these words tell us more about how someone is speaking, and they give us more of an idea of how the words are actually coming out. Because when you look at words on a page, you can't really hear them. You don't understand what's behind them. So a word like babbled tells us that somebody is talking quite quickly and maybe without control and maybe not really thinking about what they're saying. A word like complained tells us that somebody is moaning, and it will make us and the reader understand that somebody isn't very happy and maybe speaking in that kind of moany kind of voice. If somebody declares something, then they are saying it out there, and they might be speaking more loudly than if they whispered. Okay, so these words are far more than just synonyms for said. They give us more of an idea, more of an indication of how something is actually being spoken and the mind of the person that's speaking it. It gives us more description, and that is the name of the game, because we are looking at description this term. Okay. I would like you now to go to Astronaut Vicky. On DB Primary, there is a link on Astronaut Vicky. I want you to click on it and go and see her. And she will show you how speech is done and how there are 5 rules, which you might even talk about 4, but there are 5 rules to speech, and we are going to go and remind ourselves of them before we get on to today's challenge. So go have a look at the YouTube video for Astronaut Vicky right here on DB Primary, please, and then come back to me. Okay, so hopefully you saw that there are 5 rules of speech. The most important rules are rules on my list here, which are 1, 2, and 4. That speech needs to work with speech marks either side of it. Now, for whatever wisdom, speech marks sometimes are called inverted commas. Okay, and to invert something means to change it from bottom to top. It means it's sort of move it in an opposite way. Now, if you think about a comma generally sits on the line, doesn't it? It sits on the line and maybe goes through it, a bit like my finger is on my hand. Okay, so an inverted comma, instead of sitting on the line, is above the line, and that's the only reason it's called an inverted comma. Okay, so inverted commas work as a speech bubble. They hold the speech together and tell our reader which bits someone is saying out loud. Okay, you cannot have speech if it's not in inverted commas. There needs to be one at the start when someone speaks, and there needs to be one at the end when the person stops speaking. Okay, so our inverted commas hold our speech in place. Okay, then within that, if you think of them as being like a speech bubble, you have your talking. Now, like when you are writing, anything that's considered speech is new, and therefore you must start it with a capital letter. Okay, even if you're not sure about that, it should always start with a capital letter. Okay, you need to also put any punctuation inside those speech marks. So if somebody says like wow, like it says on this PowerPoint here, then the exclamation mark goes within that speech bubble. It goes within the inverted commas, because that's how it's all held together. Other things to be aware of is all speech always, a new person speaking always starts on a new line, but we'll come back to that. The 5th rule of speech is the complicated rule. So basically, the easiest thing to understand are speech marks. They hold our speech together and go at the beginning and end of the words the person is saying. Okay, what someone says starts with a capital letter, and what it finishes with is an exclamation mark, question mark, or a comma or a full stop, and we'll talk about that now. So rule number 5 is slightly more complicated, because you need to have something called a reporting clause. This is where we use those synonyms for said. Okay, they tell us who is talking. So if you think of it in a way like a script, it's telling us who's doing the speaking out loud. So your reporting clause, the bit where you tell your reader who's doing the talking, either goes at the beginning of the speech or at the end. And depending on whether it goes at the beginning or the end, depends where commas and full stops go. This is how I try to explain it. You can only ever have one full stop in a sentence, even if you have speech in it. One. You can have many commas, but one full stop. Okay? So your full stop will only ever come at the end of the sentence. Just let that filter. So when your sentence is finished, it has to end with a full stop. So if we look at the first reporting clause, where we put it at the beginning, Holly said, comma, because we are not finishing the sentence, we're still going. Holly said, comma, doing speech is just too hard. Then, because it is a speech, we use the full stop and then we close our speech marks. Okay? So this comma does come at the end of the sentence. There are no more words to follow within that sentence. But because it is part of the speech, it must go inside the speech marks. So where the reporting clause comes at the beginning, if the person who is talking is not asking a question or is not exclaiming something, then the full stop comes at the end of the speech and then you close your speech marks. If you are putting your reporting clause at the end, then the full stop goes after that reporting clause. So, nah, it's not, you just have to concentrate, said Max. So in this case, after the word Max, that's the end of our sentence, that is where the full stop goes. But what about the speech? He's saying something, he's not asking something. So instead, that is where that comma goes, okay? The comma, you can think of it as almost like a part-time full stop, okay? No, it's not, you just have to concentrate, comma, said Max. You can't put a full stop there within those speech marks, even though he's done talking, because you can only have one full stop in a sentence. Okay, are you with me? Okay, so if the reporting clause, the said bit, comes at the end of the sentence, then the full stop comes after that. Said Max, full stop. Now, if you are using an exclamation mark or a question mark, then you don't need commas, okay? You two stop talking, exclamation mark, moan, Igor, full stop. You can have an exclamation mark, a question mark, and a full stop in a sentence. That's okay, but not two full stops. Against the law. Awesome. Okay. So, to see how well you've grasped this, I would like you to have a go at punctuating these sentences, okay? Remember that you need to think about where the reporting clause is. You must only have one full stop per sentence. Whether it goes inside the speech marks or outside will depend on where the reporting clause is. You must use a comma to separate the reporting clause from the speech. You mustn't forget to put the speech marks in. You must put capital letter to start the speech. I want you to have a go, and then I'm going to show you the answers, and you can mark them and tell me out of 6 how many you got right. This is just to practice for you, so don't worry if you don't get them right, but I do want you to stop now and have a go. Okie dokie, let's see how we got on. So let's go to pen and let me see how this goes. So Clive said, comma, okay? Then open those speech marks. I have to catch the train, full stop, close the speech marks. Okay, hopefully you got that. Now, I'll tell you what, team, year 6, I'll let you into a secret. I'm a left-hander, but I use the mouse in my right hand. So that's why I'm not very good at writing with it. Okay, so I'm going to try swapping hands and see if that makes it any better. Okay, where are you going? Asked Clem. So which is the speech part? Well, it's this bit. So where are you going? Here we go. Where are you going? Now, do I put a full stop, a question mark, exclamation mark, comma? What would go here? Where are you going? Well, where are you going is a question. So we put a question mark there, and then that's the end of the speech. So we do that. Now, one thing I know from some people in my class is that they tend to here put a capital letter because it's coming after punctuation, no capital letter, all right? So, and it should never be a capital letter unless it's the start of speech. So where are you going? Ask Clem, full stop. Okay, I'm going to Newcastle, said Clive. So again, the reporting clause comes at the end. Oh, that was hopeless, wasn't it? Now, comma needs to come in here and full stop needs to go. Clem wondered why. Well, wondering. Unless Clem wondered out loud, shall we assume Clem wondered out loud? So if Clem wondered out loud, it would be wondered, comma, open speech marks, And that needs to be a capital. Oh, dearie me, Mrs. Ferg. Why? Question mark. Oh, dear. I'm terrible with this. Okay, so hopefully you can work out that that's meant to be a capital W. Okay. Clive laughed, comma. Open speech marks. Capital M. My team better win. Now, if somebody's laughing, it could be a full stop. My team better win. Those speech marks. But actually, I think exclamation marks better. Okay. Right. Keep your finger crossed. Oh dear, poor old Clive seems to have had an accident and lost the rest of his fingers. Right. Okay. Keep your fingers crossed, replied Clem. So the reporting clause is here at the end. So that means we need to start with the speech marks here. We've got a nice capital letter. Happy day. Keep your fingers crossed. Now, can't put a full stop here because it's not the end of the sentence. My full stop goes there. I'll put it there. It's there. It's done. So this needs to be a comma, and then we put the speech marks. I'm not doing this very neatly. Hopefully you are seeing that the comma is slightly closer to the letters than the speech mark is. All right. How did you get on? Hopefully you got at least 4 out of 6, if not 6 out of 6. If you did, give yourself a dojo. Well done. Okay, last challenge for today's English lesson. Fun picture. This comes from the classic, brilliant Oliver Twist, made, I don't know, in the 1960s, 1970s. It is fantastic, and we will hopefully get to watch it one day in school, or perhaps I will direct you to go and find it on the internet. Here is Fagin. Look, here's Fagin. He's the guy with the beard. The little lad in the middle, that's Oliver. And hopefully you can tell the guy with the little snub nose, and you can see he's got his top hat in his hands. That is the Artful Dodger. So what I want you to do is imagine a conversation between Oliver and Fagin. What would each character be saying to each other? Remember, Fagin is quite an oily, greasy kind of, oh, my dear kind of character, while Oliver is good but quite shy, okay? Now, things to remember. I want you to use synonyms for said. I'm going to place the mat that I've shown you earlier in this video on DB Primary, so you can either print it or you can keep it on your computer and you can go and look at it to give you ideas of other words that you can use instead of just said, he said, whispered, or whatever. Okay? You must try to use those 5 rules of speech. I want you to be using them accurately. I also do not want this to be a script. Okay, so you must be using other words, other description in there. So something like Oliver trembled and said, and whispered, "Thank you, sir." Okay. So things like that, as to make it into what we call a narrative. So it should be like I see in a story, all right? Now, I don't want reams, although if you really want to go for it, I'd love to see it. But at least, let's see, I think, Mrs. Nineham, you can see how much you think your class needs to do. I think, do you think maybe half a page, Mrs. Nineham? You decide. For those of you working at home, I want a good paragraph, okay? If you get stuck, if you don't understand what I'm asking you to do, get hold of me. If you are watching on FergieTube, you know how to get hold of me. You can like, no, you can't share, but you can like it. And just get in touch. I'm looking forward very much to reading your writing, and I shall see you next week. For more exciting installments of Oliver Twist. Have an amazing rest of day, team. Have a super duper weekend. Stay in, stay safe, and I shall see you next week.